Hey guys, Mila the Hangry Woman here, and today on my channel we are talking about things that you should not say to somebody when you find out that they have diabetes. Before we get started, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you're looking for more videos about life with diabetes. I myself live with a form of diabetes called Latent Autoimmune Diabetes in adults. It's a slow progressing form of type 1 diabetes, and I've learned a lot about diabetes since my diagnosis and love sharing it here on my channel. So definitely be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you like content like that, and let me know down in the comments below what kinds of things you want me to cover. I have videos on what different foods do to your blood sugar, all the way to, like, I don't know, living with diabetes, getting diagnosed with diabetes, getting re-diagnosed with diabetes, videos about Ozempic, different medications I've taken, all kinds of stuff. So if you are into that kind of information, this is the channel for you, and I'm so glad you're here. But with that, let's get started. When you're first diagnosed with diabetes, I feel like you get a lot of stigmatizing comments and comments that are just kind of uncalled for, like things that people should not say to your face, and yet they do. And it's really annoying, and I thought that I would make this video kind of in that annoyance and talk about some of the stigmatizing things that people can say that they maybe feel like is a way to make you feel better or express sympathy, but it's not. So if you've recently been diagnosed with diabetes and somebody has said one of these things to you, definitely leave it down below in a comment, or if there's something that I don't cover here that ends up being something that you felt like was said to you upon your diagnosis, I would really like to hear about it. I like to talk about stigma and stigmatizing language and how it affects people with chronic health conditions. And so I think this is a really good video to do because of that. So first thing that you should not say when somebody tells you that they have diabetes is ask them if they have the bad kind of diabetes. All forms of diabetes suck. All forms of diabetes are bad. And I would also add, don't ask if they have the bad or good kind, because there is no good kind. They are all different and caused by different things. I have a blog up about the 10 plus different types of diabetes. There are that many different types of diabetes and how they are caused and how they function in the body. And so it's not helpful to ask somebody if they have the good or bad type of diabetes. It's, not a great response to somebody telling you that they have diabetes, because it creates a perception around the condition where it's not up to you to judge whether it's good or bad. It's up to the person who's living with it to express their feelings about their illness. So I think that that is a terrible response to, somebody telling you I have diabetes, and then you say, well, do you have the good kind or the bad kind? Because it alienates different types of diabetes, for one, but also it's just not the right question to ask. A different question to ask in that case would be maybe, how are you dealing with diabetes? How has it changed your day-to-day life? How do you feel about your diabetes diagnosis? And allow the person to be able to talk to you about that and tell you about that, instead of just assuming and labeling their chronic condition. The second thing not to say is, my blank has diabetes, so I know all about diabetes. And while that may seem helpful and you may be trying to establish some empathy with the person that you're talking about, diabetes is different for every single person who's living with it. There are commonalities in terms of treatment styles, in terms of the ways that you eat, in terms of whether you take insulin for diabetes or not, whether you take oral medications for diabetes or not. But you knowing someone who has diabetes does not give you any direct experience with it, and it certainly does not mean that you know everything about diabetes. And so instead of telling someone that you know all about diabetes because your grandma had it or your cat had it or this person or that person or whatever, whoever had it, I think it's really important to say, oh, I know someone living with diabetes, and you can kind of leave it at that. I think everybody knows somebody who's living with diabetes. It's one of the most common chronic conditions in the world. And so you don't have to say that you know all about it and that you're an expert on it because you have this adjacent position to someone with diabetes. If you're not living with diabetes, you will never understand what it's like to live with diabetes. Like even doctors who treat diabetes, treating it and seeing it in a person and being that person's care team member is so much different than living it every single minute of every single day, because it is literally a 24/7, 365 job. So just knowing someone and seeing someone, like maybe you see the person that you know that has diabetes once a month, you're seeing a tiny fraction of what they deal with every single day. And it does not make you an expert on the condition just because you know somebody. Another poor reaction to somebody's diagnosis is, hey, well, at least it's not this chronic condition. We see it a lot, and I have seen a lot of people say, well, hey, at least it's not cancer. Hey, at least it's not pancreatitis. That's a bad example, actually, because your pancreas has like everything to do with diabetes. But hey, it's you know, at least it's not this, at least it's not that. And that is a terrible reaction to somebody letting you know that they have diabetes, because suffering is not a comparison. Although living with any chronic condition is an awful experience, it's not helpful to compare it to something else and to make someone feel like they are not validated in their feelings about living with diabetes. So don't compare it to any other illness or any other disease, because that comparison is not equal and it's not fair and it doesn't work. I think comparing it to another chronic illness also shuts down the feelings of the person who is admitting their diagnosis to you. So instead of allowing them to feel their feelings, allowing them to feel grief or sadness or just being upset or angry about their diagnosis, you're basically saying, well, it's not as bad as other people have it, so your feelings aren't valid. And that is not fair when it comes to being diagnosed with a chronic illness, especially one that's lifelong like diabetes, that you don't get away from. Once you have the diagnosis, it can be managed throughout your whole entire life, but you still have diabetes. And so I think that it's really important to recognize that those feelings and how people react to their diagnosis are going to be different. And it's not up to you to say, hey, at least it's not this, so you should feel better about it, because that's not fair. That is totally just like telling them, don't feel any sort of way about your illness because somebody has it worse than you, and that sucks. My blank lost a blank to diabetes. Usually it's someone lost a foot to diabetes. Talking about complications is so important, but fear tactics when it comes to living with diabetes are not. And while you may know somebody who has that experience, the same thing applies. There's no reason to scare someone into feeling like they might develop a complication over time because you have seen someone else experience it. Just because you have diabetes doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to deal with an amputation in your lifetime. And it's not helpful or productive to put that fear on someone when they are just trying to manage the illness the best that they can. I heard you can cure that with blank. So cinnamon, bitter melon, drinking more water, never eat carbs again, all the things. Like, people have so many cures for diabetes. And here's the thing. If those things could cure diabetes, right, you would think that we would all be doing that and we would all not have diabetes. And there would be 0 cases of diabetes in this entire world if cinnamon could cure it, or bitter melon could cure it, or aloe, or the many things that people say, you could cure your diabetes with this. If it was that easy, we would all be doing it. Diabetes is expensive. Diabetes is time consuming. It is physically consuming. It is mentally consuming. There's not a single person that I know with diabetes who says, like, I love having diabetes. I'm so happy I have diabetes. Nobody says that. It sucks like I said, your time, your money, your mental, your physical energy. If there was an easy fix and if there was an easy cure, we would all be doing it. So it's not helpful to tell someone, oh, I heard you can cure it with this, because chances are, if we knew that, our doctors would be telling us that. Chances are, if we knew that, that's what we would be doing, so we wouldn't have to live with this very stupid illness. not helpful to tell us how to cure our diabetes. Did you eat too much candy as a kid? The answer is no. Well, maybe. The answer is maybe, but that's not why I have diabetes. So I think it's really important to recognize that diabetes is caused in a vast number of different ways. Like I said before, I put a link down in the description box to show you the different types of diabetes and how they're all like physiologically prevalent in the body and why. And 0% of those reasons are that somebody ate too much candy as a kid. So don't ask someone that question. Don't ask someone how their diabetes was caused. Even I think that it's like the least important question that you could ask about diabetes and that somebody could ask you about diabetes. That part truly does not matter. But I think the assumption that it's all about candy, it's all about sugar is misplaced and misguided. And I can talk about that maybe in another video about like how that perception came about and why it happened, but not the question that should be asked on the table. This one I love, and it's, can you eat that? And I literally have an entire series on my YouTube channel about this question in particular and what different foods do to blood sugar. And so people automatically think that you can't eat sugar, but I can tell you that sugar has saved my life so many times from hypoglycemia. People automatically assume that you can't eat any carbs, so every carb is off limits. Vegetables have carbs, fruit has carbs. They are not unhealthy options because they have carbohydrates. You just have to be aware of how they affect your body. And so I think that assumption that you can't eat the things that you want to eat is also misplaced. I also think that people believe that when you have diabetes, all that you have eaten is things like fried foods or, refined sugars or things with added sugars or like, the things you see on the grocery store shelf that are literally like pumped full of sugar. And I think it's really important to recognize that that is not the case for most people. But I think it's really important to recognize, and like that's my whole platform here, is that you can enjoy your food. You can have flavorful food. You can have great food. You can eat delicious things. You just have to be mindful of what those things are and how they might affect your body. And I know like I'm making this video and this particular comment about foods, and people are going to fight me because they always fight me when I say that I eat oatmeal. People say I'm a bad diabetic, and I'm like, how is it bad to eat something that is low fat, heart healthy, filling, that can be changed in multiple different ways to make it something delicious? When I pair it with fruit, people will say, well, you're eating too much sugar. And I'm like, when did we start vilifying fruit? Like, I don't know how we got here and how we did this, but the moral of this story and this like bullet point is just, you don't need to question what's on someone's plate when they have diabetes. We've got it. We can figure it out for ourselves, and we don't need a babysitter and somebody to hold our hand whenever we're in this place. I could never inject myself with needles is another thing that people will say when you tell them that you have diabetes and you take insulin. And what I always say back to that is, if you had to survive, you would do it. You would do whatever it took to live every single day. And that includes injecting yourself with needles, whether you're taking a medication where you have to do it once a week, whether you're taking insulin where you have to do it daily, depending on the type of insulin you take, or if you have to do it multiple times a day because you're taking insulin to combat meals. I think it's so incredibly important to recognize that we do things that we don't want to do every single day to keep ourselves alive. And it's the biggest motivator in the world. So I was afraid the first time I had to prick my finger. I was afraid the first time that I had to inject insulin with a pen needle. I was super afraid the first time I had to inject myself with insulin with a long syringe. And you do what it takes to keep yourself alive. That's it. That's point blank. So it's not helpful to say, I could never do that, because if you had to, you would learn to do it, and you would learn to do it fast so that you could live the longest, healthiest life possible. And the last one is, you don't look diabetic. And I personally don't get this one. But I know people who have, and I know that it's been like really frustrating because what does diabetic look like? So you think about people with diabetes, we come in all shapes, all sizes, all colors, all nationalities. We're from different parts of the world. We eat different foods. There is a diversity in the population of people that have diabetes. And so I know what that question is getting at. Typically it's about size. It's about whether you're fat or not fat. That's pretty much what it boils down to, because people think that having diabetes equates to looking a certain way when it doesn't. There are plenty of fat people in the world, and I don't say that in like a pejorative term or pejorative way. I am one of them. Doesn't count, I guess, because I have diabetes, but there are plenty of fat people in the world who don't have diabetes. There are plenty of skinny people in the world who do have diabetes. And so it's not about how you look or like what your outward appearance is like. That has literally zero to do with having diabetes. And so it's not helpful and not productive to tell someone you don't look like you have diabetes. It doesn't further the conversation in any particular way that makes it more positive. And it also doesn't make the person you're saying it to feel any better, because they still have diabetes. It doesn't matter if they look like it or not. Okay, that's it for this video. I can't talk about any more things because I feel like it's making me so mad, because people really do say these things and they mean well. I think, like, I don't think that a lot of these things are jabs. I don't think that a lot of these things are meant to be mean, but they do come off mean, and they come off mean-spirited and unhelpful, and really put the person that you're talking to in a bad headspace about diabetes. But they also show the many misconceptions of what people think diabetes is, who they think gets diabetes, and how it is often treated and looked at. And I think people take it less seriously than they should, and saying things like that is a result of that. Because people don't take diabetes seriously, we get questions like that, and sometimes it's awkward and cumbersome to correct those things. But if somebody approaches you like that, I would implore you to correct them and to tell them why. Because the more people that understand diabetes and understand what it's like living with diabetes, the better care we all receive, the more people take it seriously and don't blame us for our own illness. Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of these questions are very blamey and shamey, and we don't deserve that. We live with this terrible thing every single day, and we deserve much better than that. All right, that's it for this video. Thanks guys for watching. Be sure to leave down in the comments below if there is a comment that somebody has told you when you revealed your diabetes diagnosis, if I didn't mention it in this video, because I'm curious about other things that people say and other things that people get when they reveal their diagnosis. And yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye.